on Thursday, November 14th, 2019 at the Community Center Sierra Room to order. Can you call the roll, please?
Chairperson Drews,
Here.
Vice Chair Darney,
Here.
Commissioner Block, Commissioner Schmitter, Commissioner Spielda, Commissioner Hayes,
Here.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Next item is B, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this public comment portion of the agenda. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to C for possible action. Approval of the minutes from September 12th, 2019. We have the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Okay, good.
To approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
One
abstain.
abstention? We're 3-4 and one abstention. Minutes are approved. D, modification of the agenda. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Is there any modifications?
Because the applicant for item number 1 is not present, I would ask that the commission take item 2, where the applicant is present first, and then we'll follow up with item 1.
That's fine with me. Commission members, any issues?
No.
Okay. Item E, meeting items. E2, HRC-19-156 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a request for a 4-foot fence on property zoned residential office located at 309 West King Street, APN 003-216-13. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The request is for a 4-foot fence. If you are able to go by the property, you'll see the construction of the fence has commenced. The home is on the subject property is part of a grouping of 4 homes constructed between 1865 and 1870. The homes are 1-story rectangular wood frame structures that are vernacular builder homes with some classical revival and Italianate influences. The grouping is significant as the earliest builder development in Carson City. The grouping retains a strong sense of unity and identity. The applicant is proposing a 4-foot open-style fence that utilizes wood and metal. The applicant is also proposing a trellis arbor-like structure at the gate. And I'll show a picture of that. These are 2 samples that the applicant provided to me for what he was thinking about in terms of the gate-like structure. The development standards do allow an open-style fencing in the setback, but it's limited to 4 feet. So this trellis structure, I'm not sure whether we call it a trellis or an arbor. I met with Mr. Mason in the office, and I think we went back and forth on that. But it may not exceed 4 feet if it's in the setback, so it would have to be set back 10 feet to meet the development standards. In terms of the fence, each post has a light attached to it. Section 5.24 of the development guidelines provide guidelines for new fencing. These guidelines tell us that the design should be based on the function. The fencing may not adversely affect the primary views of the building. The design should enhance the overall visual presentation of the building. And the fence should utilize material which is traditionally associated with fences in the district, including wood, wrought iron, and decorative woven wire. The applicant, as I said, is proposing to utilize the wood and metal in the fence, and those are materials that are found in the district. The 4-foot open-style fence does not block the primary view of the building. The fence design is modern, so it will not be confused with an original fence. Staff's not certain that this fence enhances the overall presentation of the building, but it also doesn't compromise the overall presentation of the building. Staff does believe that the trellis or arbor structure would compromise the primary views of the building, as well as compromise the overall presentation of the building, because it's somewhat bulky and the building's relatively small. Staff also finds that the lights on the post will compromise the overall presentation of the building. I also believe the presence of those lights on those posts caused the fence to be more than the 4 feet that's allowed. So with the removal of the lights and the trellis, staff finds that the proposed fencing is consistent with the guidelines. In condition 2, I did make a mistake. That condition should simply say that if it's approved, the approval needs to be consistent with the development plans being reviewed by the Historic Resource Commission. There shouldn't be any comments on fenestration. Also, at the meeting this evening, I did receive a letter from Lisa and Danielle Bohan. They're at 311 West King, and they are supportive of the request before you. With that, I'm happy to answer questions. The applicant, Steve Mason, is present, and I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Hope. I believe that was condition number 3 in your recommendations. Any questions of Hope from the commission? Mr. Mason, do you want to come up and answer any questions the commission may have? Anyone have questions of Mr. Mason?
Good evening. My name is Steve Mason. I reside and own the property at 309 West King Street. At the time that I began construction on my fence, I was not aware of the conditions that I am now aware of after meeting with Ms. Sullivan at Planning. And I must say that I appreciate you and my ability to come talk to you, because I wondered when I found myself in this dilemma, well, who represents me, the homeowner, the taxpayer, the resident? And Ms. Sullivan says, well, this department represents you. So I appreciated that. And I also appreciate the fact that you take your time and that you are interested in the integrity of the historic district. I chose to purchase that property in 2005, and I didn't make copies for everyone, but I would like, at least, if I may approach, have you thumb through the photographs that I made.
Are there any commission member questions?
I got one question. I've seen this property numerous times. I almost purchased the one next door to it several years back. The original fence, has it been long gone?
It's long gone. I found a piece. It was metal T-posts and woven loop wire fence.
Right.
I attempted to mimic that woven wire fence with the metal fence that I chose. It's about the same size. It's in the pictures that I submitted. And I become educated. I know too much about fences now. And when I was advised by code enforcement that I need to go have a conversation with Hope, and then she told me that I'd be having a conversation with you, I looked, I don't remember ever being noticed that me building a fence in the historic district required your approval. I've learned different since then. And since having a conversation with Hope, I suspended building the arbor. I call it an arbor. I just put in an example. Something needs to hold those gate posts together. And one of the reasons I chose that material is the loop fence, and I submitted a photograph of a nearby property with loop fence. It sags, it deteriorates. I wanted something permanent. I wanted something that upheld some visual interest and that had quality that would be there for the next 20 years and enhance the property. And certainly that was durable. That's why I chose the materials I did. I'm not a white picket fence kind of guy. I do appreciate it. My next door neighbors have one. It's cute. I'm not cute. I I want something a little different. And so I chose these materials carefully. I also appreciate that Lynn McCarthy, my friend's with me, and she has helped and can on the fence. As far as one of the conditions that are required of the fence, that it be pleasing in the community. I just retired from law enforcement not too long ago. I've attended 2 police academies, 1 agent academy. And in those academies, what was drummed into my head is reasonable person doctrine. So I want to just say briefly about reasonable people. It is no exaggeration that just me, at least 100 people, going on wine walks, going to the farmer's market, going to the concerts right by that house, have stopped and commented on that fence, not the house, on the fence. A lot of people that work over at 400 West King in an office building, people that attend church across the street. I haven't received 1 negative comment. All I receive is how much people appreciate the improvements that have been made on the property. I just moved back in June 15th this summer and done all the work, the pavers, a new roof. And this was, I didn't know that I had to go through the Historic Commission on shingling the roof. But I did, because after I was pulled up by Miss Sullivan, I went and got the correct approval. Also consulted regarding a stovepipe, because there's a historical reference to that, chimneys in the area. So I'll be submitting an application. I did not go rogue and build this fence. I never received notice. I haven't lived in it. I've rented out the property. It's not an excuse, because I believe the fence stands on its own. And I will take issue with lighting and ask your input on the arbor, because something needs to hold those fence posts so it doesn't sag and the gate doesn't sag. So a cross piece of some sort that you would approve. Regarding the lights, they're just solar lights. They go on for about an hour or 2 in the evening. There's no lighting on that street. The light at the corner of Division and King has been out for as long as I can remember. There's also a crosswalk there. People have commented that they appreciate the lights. It just gives off a little bit of an ambient light. And then they turn off. Like I said, in a couple hours, I had a discussion with a church across the street. They also put lights because they consider a safety issue. I consider it a safety issue that no one can see as they're walking down the street. So, and I don't think those lights, those caps, take away from the visual integrity of the fence. I've also, I was going to plant trees. I learned that you need to approve the trees that I plant, so I stopped. So I just want to let you know that I didn't go about this thinking that I needed to come before you first.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah. Don?
When was this picture taken?
Just 3 weeks ago.
Was it?
Yes, sir.
So your next door neighbor built his arbor, because I'm looking at a picture on my iPad, and that arbor wasn't there a year ago.
Okay.
The neighbor.
So I'm just curious. The other thing is, I know you don't have to get a permit for that, because the building code says any fence, wall under 7 feet tall does not require a building permit, or you even go into the building department or ask if that fence can be built. And a lot of these things come before us because people don't realize that. They're well within they think they're within their rights, but unfortunately, you're in a historic district, and, you know, the next step had to be taken.
Yes, sir.
So that's the problem there, but you didn't break any rules. You know, the code doesn't require you to put a permit on that. So it just requires that you come talk to us.
Yes, sir.
Did you see the arbor next door?
I love their arbor, by the way.
Well, I'm sure you do.
Well, I mean, I really do.
See right here, and look at right here. Same house. There's his.
Yeah, I'll ask them.
I'm not trying to get those people.
Yes. Sure.
So Hope, by code, you can't have a structure like that with the setback he has?
Exactly. I was looking through the code expecting, what I looked for was something that would allow this type of structure to encroach into the front setback, and I couldn't find a provision to allow that.
Yeah, the photo on the left is, I agree, it's a little heavy.
Yes.
The one on the right, which looks to me like it's a couple of simple posts and a cross member with maybe a couple of brackets on it or something.
Yes.
That scale suits me for what you've done with yours.
I understand what you're saying.
I would have no problem with that in that scale, but like I said, we have to play with the game with the planning and the zoning of can it be allowed. That's where there's a fine line between, is it part of the fence? Is it just an entry feature? Is it a gate? Is it because we have that happen a lot with the fences around here, whether or not the maximum height of 7 feet, is that average? Is that the main fence material? Is that the posts? I mean, it's kind of vague in that regard. I agree.
After speaking with Hope, I want to put a 6-foot gate under the arbor, and then I made it the same height as the fence. I had visions of white climbing roses going over a little arbor.
Oh, you can do growies however you want.
Yeah,
That's what they
but
follow is the
I have
problem,
to have
yeah.
cross pieces and maybe some sort of, if the cross pieces sandwich the 4x4 material had a few little, did you have a picture? Little pieces across the top. Yeah. Yeah, something like this, maybe not.
Be really simple.
Mr. Chair, while you all are having your discussion, I understand it's a little surprising that we don't allow this type of structure. I think probably the right answer is for the Historic Resource Commission to make your recommendation based on the design guidelines. And once I understand your recommendation, I can work with Mr. Mason and just go through the code and see if there's anything that would allow this, and if not, I'll figure out how he navigates that going forward.
I just want to make sure, I don't want to be misunderstood that because there's an arbor next door that he hasn't. I'm just pointing out that we have another, it's hard for somebody that's, building a place next door and looks, oh, I'm going to do one of those, and that person's not conforming.
We had the same problem on Minnesota Dawn with that vinyl fence that went up.
Yeah.
Where there was one next door. But the fact is,
Yeah.
we don't approve vinyl fences, and it's interesting that somebody got away with it. And with the trellis next door, someone obviously put it up, got away with it. Code enforcement didn't see it. So it's,
Again, there was.
it's not under, it's one of those things that happens.
No, yeah, I'm not saying it justifies it, I'm just pointing it out, and that we seem to be caught up in what happens here, because again, I'm sure there's no code that he had to go and say, geez, I'm gonna build a trellis. But I do have a couple comments on the trellis.
Yes, sir.
Your house is a very simple form of architecture with very clean lines. And the 4-foot fence with the open fabric that you've got, I don't think really detracts from the house. I like the fence. But I even think the most minimalist trellis that you're placing in front of that very simple porch that you have does become somewhat of a distraction. I also know from doing this for more than a couple of days that you don't have to, those fence posts are at a gate, if they're placed correctly, don't need a cross piece at the top. I mean, it justifies the trellis, but the majority of fences don't have a cross piece that are 4 feet tall. The gates will hang on them. But I love your house. I think it's beautiful. I think the work that you've done on it is wonderful. And I just think that what we do here is try to help you maintain that look and maintain the historic character of that district. The house is wonderful. I don't have a problem with the fence. But I do have a little bit of a problem with the trellis that's going to take away from the front of your home and all that wonderful work you've done.
Thank you.
If I could just comment, I'm a few blocks away at 4th Street and Minnesota Street in my house. And what we decided to do is keep the gate. I am one of the picket fences you don't like. That's an aside, but.
No, I just said, I'm not the biggest.
Yeah, and that's fine, but we decided to keep the gate basically the same height as the fence. And in fact, I put a trellis in the back, the things are climbing on each year. So that was my solution, to put something in the back that I can enjoy, but to not intrude on what you can see of the porch and the entryway and so on. Because that's what it begins to do, it's as Don said here, it's hard to pull it off and not add something that right in front of that porch, really, if you're standing at the gate, that isn't necessarily a plus. So simpler is better.
Do you like the blue door?
It's a little too blue for me somehow, but I'm willing to stare at it for a while.
Okay. Oh,
Did you want to address the commission?
So that last little.
Yeah, you need to introduce yourself for the record. Go ahead.
Are you done?
We just don't want to go, hey, you.
Is it on? Hi, I'm Lynn McCarthy, Steve's roommate, and I've kind of helped him along with all these projects since I'm living there too. I'm really grateful to be living there. He helped me get out of Southern California, so yay. That last picture of the little simple, just the top of that with the two boards basically sandwiching the posts, we actually had talked about perhaps doing something that is the same as the porch in terms of the boards. If you look at the existing
build-up
porch.
on the porch is simple. little
Yeah,
build-up.
just how it's the straight across instead of, cutting the ends in or something. And it would, of course, be much lower than the porch, so like something super simple, because we don't want anything ornate either. So that was all I wanted to add, that if that's a possibility, maybe we could submit a little drawing and you guys could see whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I think Don's point is well taken. It's, your fence is beginning to look arts and craftsy. You're moving your house up about 50 years. The trellis that you have proposed is definitely, the massing is very arts and crafts style. These are 4 very simple row houses.
Right.
When I first saw that fence going up, I liked it. I liked the materials, I liked the wood, I liked the wire. You're not mimicking an historic fence, but I think it fits well in the neighborhood. I think your materials are your texture and colors really work well. The way it sits right now, it's very simple and doesn't detract from the house. I'm not so sure that, I think you might have a height issue with the lights. In the historic district, we don't light a lot of extra lighting. I mean, a lamp post with a light on it is one thing. Putting them all on the fence posts, again, is kind of going out of period, maybe doesn't work. In terms of the trellis, if you could convince the building department that you can have one there, I think the simplest, most minimal trellis would be the solution. And you were gonna put a 6-foot gate in?
I was, but again, after talking with Hope, I installed a 4-foot, it's in the pictures, I installed a 4-foot fence. Because I thought there would be issues and I wanted it to fit in. I was gonna cut it out and I have an iron feature to go in there, but I'm willing to acquiesce on that.
Yeah, a 4-foot gate with, I mean, a solid gate is gonna do the same thing as that massive, or more massive trellis does. It adds weight, it starts blocking views. If you could put a 4-foot gate in that's either mimics a wire fence or is more open, if you have a cutout and wire in that, I think that would work.
It's already installed.
Can I throw a suggestion out? I agree with Mike. If it's possible, the building department can approve of a minimalist over-feature arbor. I'm all for that. Simple, simple, simple.
Yep.
However, if that doesn't fly, if it was mine, and what I would fall back on is, but you probably have to lose the lights on the other posts, but could we approve a pair of lights on the other side of that gate? What he has there, cut those posts down to that same height, put a light on each side and no lights on the rest of them. That would be sufficient for me. That's just my recommendation.
I have a question. I just want some clarification for myself. One of the things we talked about is we're okay with the fence because it's not trying to replicate the period that it was built in.
I have no problem with the
It's just a
fence.
fence. No, but I'm asking. So my question is the issue with the lights because they're lights or because it takes it over 4 feet tall? I need a little help here.
To me, it's both. I'm not necessarily supporting this fence because it's not confusing. I'm supporting the fence because it's not detracting from the primary view of the building. And in fact, what the guidelines say is it's supposed to enhance the overall presentation of the building. I'm not going to say that this fence enhances the overall presentation of the building. I don't believe it does. However, it does use the right materials. It's not compromising the primary view. So I'm being supportive of it. Having said that, I think the lights are busy. And I think what I'm hearing from you all is, simplify, because I'm trying to make it so that I'm putting forward a recommendation that because we're supposed to have fencing that enhances the appearance of the building, I should look up the exact wording. I'm trying to support something that's not going to fight with the building and be so busy that you see the fence and not the building. And maybe that's where we are, because you said everyone talks about the fence and not the building, right? But, so that's, my recommendation is really trying to be supportive of this fence, although it doesn't necessarily enhance the appearance of the building. And to, again, simple, simple, simple. Don't make it so busy that you can't see the building.
If I may, I don't want to forget, Dan and Lisa Bohan, my next door neighbors, who came in, wrote a letter in support. We're neighbors. They have a white picket fence. It looks great. But I wanted to make sure that they were able to at least read the letter into the record.
Before they do, I have a couple more questions, though, on the lights. So if we had a way to better hide the lights, maybe not even have them on the fence, Is that something that could,
Again, I'm putting forward, what I do is I look at the proposal from the applicant, I look at the guidelines, and I give a recommendation. If it's the feeling of the commission that these lights really are not detracting, that they're fairly minimal and they're not compromising, and most importantly, that they're consistent with the guidelines, that's for you all to decide. I'm just giving my recommendation. Could there be a lower profile light? Sure.
well, what I'm asking is, I'm very familiar with the pavers that he's placed there, and they make a block light that can actually be set right at level in the pavers, so there would be no light on the fence at all, but it would provide all the lighting that you would need if you're trying to help people down that DG sidewalk. So
Sounds
there's-
expensive.
No, they're
No?
not, they're not bad at all.
Okay.
You just have to take out a couple pavers.
Before you're done.
a little- Huh?
For you. Do you have any issues with lights on either side of the gate? We have several of those throughout the neighborhood where we've had pillars flanking the main walk or a fence or a gate.
You know, I think the problem that I have is, one, I don't want to have him, I saw in the picture where his top rail is right at 48 right now, so it puts it over, and to be real honest, it drives me crazy when somebody can't be 3 inches above that. But also, I think there's other lights that you could utilize that could be mounted on the face of the post that direct light straight down so that we don't see any glare at all. It just lights the path. It doesn't conflict with the house at all at dusk. There's some other things that you can look at. I know that these are off-the-shelf type lights that you can buy. I happen to have them in my dog kennel at home. But there are other lights that you can use that are decorative that could be mounted on the face. The light is completely shielded and sent straight down. I just think there's other types of lighting that you could do. I do think that at dusk, when you have that string of lights, it can detract from the house, and this is sarcasm. Please don't put any Christmas lights on that fence.
I won't put Christmas lights on the fence if you will take another look at these pictures where those lights
They're very,
at night enhance the property. Now, just because I was a cop and rolled in here a few months ago doesn't mean I'm devoid of any taste when it comes to composition and period. And I've been doing a lot of reading. I'm not up with the panels, certainly, but that arts and crafts era, I mean, chain link fence was, what, 1850? Chain link fence is historical, but I didn't want to put chain link fence down this. I like the lights. I'm asking for your consideration on the lights and that it not be a deal breaker. Other people enjoy the lights. And I don't want to overemphasize the safety issue, but it is a safety issue. The street is dark. I had to have them fill in a hole when a skateboarder was riding down in front of my house. It's not safe at night, can't see. So from that standpoint, I would like your consideration to keep the lights. I understand and appreciate what Mr. Smith's saying. There are other lighting features, but I don't mind the cap. And but I will defer to your judgment, certainly.
It's just important that you understand that we're not looking at, as a historic district, being an eclectic. You have a very specific type of architecture in design that is associated with those four homes.
Can you tell me what it is? Because I don't know.
Well,
I've been trying to determine everybody, oh, that's Victorian, oh, that's cottage. Well, that's arts and crafts. Well, bungalows are in arts and crafts, period.
well, it's not arts and crafts.
Okay,
The guy at the far right will take care of that.
okay.
But the point I'm trying to get to is we come up against things where I would use a trellis next door to you that somebody built. That doesn't mean it's okay for you. It doesn't mean it was okay for them. It happened. And we can't break our rules because somebody else did. We're trying to maintain a historic district and trying to maintain those elements. And we're not trying to be hard on you in any way.
I understand.
It kind of comes with buying a historic house. You know, there's, as you said, you've done a lot of reading and a lot of research. You just missed a step. You bought a home in a historic district and you should have stopped in to see Hope a year ago.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So what this is, Mr. Mason, is it's a one-story vernacular building with classical and Italianate styles. It's not arts and crafts. It was built way before arts and crafts. If you had come before us prior to installing the fence, it probably would have been a stretch for us to approve this fence, because it doesn't detract from the house, like Hope said. Like I alluded to before, I like them, it's wood, it's wire, you can make it fit. There would have had to, maybe we would have needed some convincing, but we could have made it fit. And I think it does. I think it's a little eclectic. But that has its place in an historic district too. I don't like it when people build fake Victorians and try to mimic
Yes, sir.
something that's happening. So, this is kind of a nice mix. I think the lights do make it a little busy. I understand the safety concerns. There are some, you could fix the street light for one thing, but I think Don's right. There are some post lights that you could mount a foot and a half above the walkway there that illuminate the walkway and solve the safety issue. So I think that's where we are with this. Let's try to keep it minimal. We have a good idea what it looks like, and let's go with that. So if there's no more comments, I'll entertain your lights on.
What's that?
Yes, hi.
Your lights on.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Bohan. I'm a neighbor of Steve. And I just wanted to comment that in this picture, the light is much brighter than it actually is. It's solar, so it's very dim, just to let you know. It's not bright like this. And then I submitted a letter to Hope, and it just says, we, meaning my husband and myself, Daniel, sitting in the audience, are voicing our support for the newly constructed fence at 309 West King Street, Carson City, Nevada. The fence has greatly enhanced the appearance and value of the neighborhood and added to the beautification of our city, Nevada's capital. I feel the style and design fit the era the home was built. Everyone who walks by feels compelled to comment on its appearance and admire it. We, along with many others, are in favor of keeping the fence as is because of what it adds to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other commission member questions or comments? Is there any other public comment on this item? Yeah, Don's. Here's an example of that direct lighting that Don was referring to. Are those solar, Don? I didn't look.
Yes, I'm seeing those.
Yeah. But that would solve,
I'd be looking at those, and they don't fit any period. I'd be looking at them from inside the house. But I hear what you're saying. I would be seeing them.
no, those would face the street.
Well, then that to me detracts, but I'm not gonna have a power struggle with a commission that's gonna decide if I get to keep my fence or not.
Yeah.
I'm just requesting that the fence remains in its present condition.
No, I agree that any of the lights, they're kind of detract, and they're not very consistent with anything else we have in the district. A light post out in front would, Rob's recommendation with the right light fixture on those two posts might work, but I think we do want to stay minimal. And just for the record, if you want to put Christmas lights on there, I'm fine with it. Is there any other public comment? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Can I get a little clarification from Hope again? So if we were to indicate that if a trellis can be defined, a minimalist trellis can be defined and worked out between Mr. Mason, you, and the building department, that you would assist him with that effort?
Right, what you could do is for condition number 1, you could modify it if that's where the commission wants to take it, to say the trellis arbor design is to be minimal, subject to review and approval by the chairman, and subject to compliance with any zoning regulations. And that way it's clear that we're not trying to trump the zoning.
So, Hope,
Okay, if the commission wants to give direction on the trellis, you can say the trellis arbor is to be minimal in design, subject to review by the chair of the HRC, review and approval of the chair of the HRC, but may not be, or maybe just positive, but it must be consistent with the zoning regulations.
Do you have a motion, Don?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve HRC 19-156 based on the findings of the request is consistent with the design guidelines of the Historic District and the Secretary of the Interior Standards as noted in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report, with changes to item number 1, that the trellis arbor design be minimal and can be approved by the HRC chair, but is subject to compliance with all planning and building code conditions. Unfortunately, I'm going to support staff that the lighting on the post must be removed. I just want to clarify that with my motion, and then do I have to read all of the conditions?
No, but if you can modify condition 3 to read, all development shall be substantially in accordance with the attached site development plan. And
As
it
you
will
just
end
said,
there.
as you just said, it's my motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
second?
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. So what you need to do, Mr. Mason, it sounds like we can go ahead with that trellis design. I can improve it administratively, and then we'll let the building department decide.
Okay,
I also want
okay.
I also want Mr. Mason to know that, he can appeal, our motion, if I'm not mistaken, Hope, and you can clarify that you can appeal the light issue to the Board of Supervisors. Just another step on your journey.
Okay. I'm all in with the journey. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item is E1 HRC-19-155 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding request for a replacement of a lawn area with rock and repair of a curb located under a fence on property zoned downtown mixed use located at 112 North Curry Street, APN 003-215-02. Hope.
Okay, this request is to replace a lawn area with rock and to repair the curb under an existing fence. Per the 1980 inventory, the building was constructed in 1875. The structure has a stone foundation, a gable roof, and exterior surface material is shiplap. The applicant seeking to remove the grass as the irrigation is compromising the building's foundation. The applicant proposes to retain the landscaping and the planters on the north and east sides of the building. To repair the curb, the applicant's proposing to leave the fence in place and to pour on-site in those areas where the repair is necessary so as to not compromise the fence. The guidelines for landscape elements can be found in section 5.25 of the development standards. What they say is that historic landscape features should be retained when at all possible. Fences, trees, hitching posts, carriage steps, sidewalks, and walkways provide a visual consistency and harmony of setting to the district. The subject site has a front yard delineated by a low-profile fence and a walkway from the sidewalk to the front steps. The planting strip between the sidewalk and the curb exists on the north side, but has pavers in it on the east side. This photograph is from Google. That shows 2 trees on the east side. There's actually only 1 tree there right now. Staff is recommending approval of this request with the retention of the character-defining features, specifically the existing walkway to the front entry and the low-profile fence that delineates the front yard. The applicant was not able to come tonight, so if you're not comfortable with this because you want to ask the applicant questions, I would recommend you continue this. But if you are comfortable with the request as it's been presented by staff, then you could go ahead and take action.
Thank you, Hope. Just to clarify, that the applicant's proposing to repair the curb by, or below the existing fence by putting forms in and pouring on site. So there's no change to the fence and the curb will be repaired.
Exactly correct.
Okay. Are there any questions of,
Well, do we need to know more about what he's going to pour? Is it going to look more or less like the parts of the curb that aren't damaged, presumably, but, just.
That's his intent. His intent is to match the curb that's there, and he doesn't want to damage the fence, so he's not even going to try to remove the fence. He's going to put the forms in place and just pour in those small areas where there's damage to the curb.
So if there is a concern, if there are questions, we can continue this and let the applicant
Well,
address
for
some
me,
of
it's
those.
mostly just to point out on the other issue of the removing the lawn and the gonai rock that's replacing it, is that there are other options. And you could have a few other plants or ground cover plants that end up covering the entire area that was lawn with drip irrigation and not harm the foundation anymore. So just to say, gonai rock's not the only choice that I see here. But whatever, as long as it's not the entire, area in rock, I'm okay with it.
Can I ask you one question, Hope? It's unclear to me in general, not just this site, but any other throughout the neighborhood. Is it in our purview as far as flat ground cover?
Yes, we do have the standards regarding the guidelines for landscape elements. So this commission has reviewed changes to ground cover.
And the other question I would have is, by doing this, would he be reducing his required landscaping for a property of such in the neighborhood, as far as percentage and all that you would have to go through to?
I didn't run those numbers, but I suspect given the age of this building, it predates those requirements.
Okay, that's more of a clarification I had. The last thing would be is if none of us have any trouble with what he's doing here, I would only ask that maybe he come to as an administrative thing, to the chairman with a more comprehensive understanding of how exactly he's going to coat the existing concrete. We don't want any, pool Dura-Rock type of surface. We want to be the natural grade that it is and mimic the existing, something along those lines to corner that in to not being a runaway train.
I also have a concern on
to be
removing the grass. I don't want just throwing 3/4 inch minus gravel in there and, because we said you could put gravel. I think, and I'm happy with the chair being able to review that with him, but I think we're missing a couple things here.
I'd be more comfortable if we continued this and let the applicant address our questions, because this came before me administratively to begin with, and I was uncomfortable because there was
There's a little much.
I wanted more commission input, and I still feel that way, so I think.
And I
we
think
should
also
just
because of the ownership of the building and being a member of this, it's better to bring it here in retrospect rather than saying, go ahead, Mike, take a look at this. I also agree with you that it should come back and we can talk to him here.
I don't want to be accused of a quid pro quo.
Okay, the applicant did say that if there were any concerns, he was perfectly fine with a continuation to the January meeting.
Okay, so let's continue this till January. Well, do I have to take public comment on the continuation? I guess not. Next item is F, staff reports, discussion only. Planning staff.
Since the
Oh.
last meeting, there's been 3 administrative reviews and approvals, a re-roof, a fence, and a sign.
Anything else? Commission member reports or comments? Future commission member items? Do we need to resurrect the fence stuff for next year? Is that where oh, no, windows. Never mind. Windows, okay. Just to keep that in the forefront. Any other comments or future commission items? G, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this public comment portion of the agenda. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned at 6:22.